Imagine you're sitting in a house that no longer feels like home. The funeral guests left hours ago. The fake condolences, the exhausted prayers, the cheap folding chairs stained with spilled tea. All gone. Now it's just you. The sound of insects screaming outside the wooden walls, and the heavy smell of incense crawling through the air like something alive. Your father is lying 10 feet away from you. Or at least, what's left of him is. The candles around the coffin burn with that weak orange glow that makes every shadow look diseased. Smoke from the incense coils upward in slow motion, thick enough to sting your throat. You haven't slept in almost 30 hours. Your dress shirt sticks to your skin with sweat, grief, and the humidity of the countryside night. Somewhere deeper in the house, an old clock drags itself toward 3 a.m. with a dry metallic tick. Then you hear it, scratch, not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to make your shoulders tense. You stop breathing for a second. Maybe it's the wood settling. Old houses do that. Coffins too, apparently. Your brain immediately begins manufacturing excuses, because that's what human beings do when reality starts peeling its skin off. You stare at the coffin. Nothing. The portrait of your father beside the altar smiles back at you with the same tired expression you remember from childhood. The same face you ignored for almost 7 years after moving to the city. The same man you were too busy to visit until his lungs finally gave up. Funny how guilt suddenly becomes punctual after funerals. The more you tell yourself the sound came from the house, the more aware you become of another noise underneath it. A slow, uneven tapping. Knock, knock, knock. Coming from inside the coffin. Your pulse spikes so hard it hurts. Outside, a dog begins barking into the darkness. Not normal barking either. That low, panicked kind animals make when they notice something humans haven't caught up to yet. The smell of incense suddenly changes. Beneath the smoke, beneath the wax and flowers, there's something else now. Wet soil, cold fabric, and the faint scent of stagnant water. Then the family cat appears at the end of the hallway. Black fur, reflective eyes, silent. It stares directly at the coffin. In Vietnamese folklore, there's an old belief people laugh about during daylight and desperately respect after midnight. Never let a cat jump over a corpse. Because sometimes, the dead remember how to stand back up. And trust me, that's the least terrifying part of the story. Welcome back. Tonight, we're dissecting one of Vietnam's oldest and most deeply unsettling supernatural legends. The reanimated corpse. The phenomenon of a corpse that rises again, but because something else found the body empty. What you're about to hear isn't just a ghost story. It's a psychological autopsy of grief, guilt, and the horrifying idea that the face you love most can become a doorway for something inhuman. So dim the lights. Maybe keep your bedroom door closed tonight. And if you hear someone you lost calling your name from outside the hallway, don't answer too quickly, especially if the voice sounds exactly right. The first night of a funeral is never silent. People say it is. They remember the prayers, the crying, the ceremonial rituals wrapped in incense, smoke, and candlelight. They remember relatives speaking softly, as if death itself were listening from the corners of the room. What they don't remember are the smaller sounds, the sounds that arrive after everyone grows tired, the sounds that only appear once grief finally runs out of words. You notice them now because you are alone, mostly alone, anyway. The old women from the neighborhood stopped chanting an hour ago. Your uncle passed out drunk on a bamboo chair near the kitchen. Someone left a bowl of cold rice beside the altar as an offering, untouched, except for the flies gathering around it under the dim yellow bulb. And your father is still inside the coffin waiting. The air feels heavier after midnight. Humidity presses against your skin like wet cloth. Every breath tastes faintly of ash and burnt sandalwood. You sit cross-legged on the tile floor with a paper cup of bitter tea between your hands. Staring at the framed funeral portrait beside the altar, your father looks calmer in the photo than he ever did in life. That bothers you more than it should, because the last real conversation you had with him ended with silence and a disconnected phone call 7 years ago. You still remember his exact words. When this city is done using you up, don't bother coming home. Plot twist. You came home anyway. Just a little too late. A moth throws itself against one of the candles. Tiny crackling sounds follow as its wings curl into smoke. Somewhere outside, rainwater drips steadily from the roof into a metal bucket. Tick, tick. Then another sound interrupts it. Knock. You freeze. Your eyes slowly drift toward the coffin. Nothing moves. Your rational brain immediately tries damage control. Old wood expands at night. Humidity affects pressure. Coffins settle. That's the thing about human beings. We'll build entire logical frameworks just to avoid admitting we're scared. Then it happens again. Knock, knock. This time louder. Directly beneath the lid. Your mouth goes dry. The room suddenly feels colder, though the summer heat hasn't changed. Goosebumps crawl up your arms as the incense smoke near the altar begins twisting unnaturally, bending toward the coffin instead of floating upward. That's when the cat appears. Black fur, thin body, reflective yellow eyes glowing from the hallway. It stands perfectly still beside the doorway, staring at your father's coffin without blinking. Every muscle in your body tightens instantly, because somewhere deep inside your childhood memories, buried beneath years of pretending to be modern and logical, you remember your grandmother's voice. Never let a cat near the dead. You used to laugh at that story. Right up until now, the cat takes one slow step forward, then another. Its paws make almost no sound against the tile floor, but your heartbeat grows violently loud inside your ears. The animal stops beside the altar and tilts its head slightly toward the coffin. And the tapping stops. For 3 full seconds, the room becomes completely silent. No insects, no rain, no breathing. Then, a long creaking sound emerges from inside the coffin. Not scratching, not knocking, wood bending outward. Something inside just shifted its weight. You stumble backward so quickly the tea spills across your hands. The cup hits the floor and rolls beneath a chair. Your chest tightens painfully as every survival instinct finally wakes up screaming. The cat hisses. Its back arches violently, and from inside the coffin, you hear the unmistakable sound of fingernails dragging slowly across wood. Not aggressive, not frantic, almost curious, like something testing the walls of a room it just woke up inside. You want to run. God, you want to run. But grief is a disgusting thing. It chains people to places they should escape immediately. Part of you still wants this to be your father somehow. Part of you desperately wants one impossible miracle to exist in a world that already took too much from you. That hope lasts exactly 5 seconds. Because then you hear his voice. Weak, distorted, wet. Calling your childhood nickname from inside the coffin. The same nickname nobody has used in over 15 years. And suddenly, every adult in the house wakes up at once. Your aunt screams from the kitchen. A chair crashes onto the floor. Prayer beads snap somewhere behind you. But the oldest reaction comes from your grandmother. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She grabs the nearest bundle of incense with trembling hands and whispers the one sentence that instantly drains the color from everyone's face. Don't let it out. Because in Vietnamese folklore, the dead should never be left alone. Not before sunrise, not before the soul finishes leaving, and definitely not after something else starts trying to wear the body instead. The first rule is simple. If the dead call your name, don't answer. Of course, human beings are terrible at simple rules. The coffin lid shudders once. Then again, your grandmother shoves a trembling hand against your chest, forcing you backward. Her fingers are cold, dry, and impossibly strong for someone who can barely climb the stairs without help. Do not speak to it, she whispers. Not him. That word lands harder than the knocking. Your aunt starts crying near the kitchen doorway, one hand clamped over her mouth. Your uncle, now fully sober in the most tragic way possible, grabs a kitchen knife and places it flat beneath the coffin stand. The blade looks pathetic there, small and domestic, the kind of thing used to cut onions 5 hours ago. Still, everyone stares at it like it's the last border between this world and whatever is trying to crawl into it. A ritual defense system, family edition, very traditional, very underfunded. The thing inside the coffin taps again. Knock, knock. Then your father's voice leaks through the wood. Open the door. Your throat tightens because it's almost perfect. The tone is right, the rhythm is right. Even the little rasp at the end of each word, the one he got after decades of smoking cheap cigarettes behind the house, is right. But something underneath is wrong. Too hollow, too wet. Like the voice is being played through a room full of standing water. Your grandmother lights more incense. The smoke burns your nose and coats your tongue with bitterness. She mutters prayers so quickly, the words begin to blur together. Your uncle scatters grains of sticky rice across the floor around the coffin, his hands shaking so badly half of them bounce against the tiles. You remember hearing about this as a child. Rice to distract the thing, incense to guide the soul, metal to cut the dark, and a family gathered close because loneliness is where the dead become available. The coffin lid rises half an inch. Everyone stops breathing. A grey hand slips through the gap. Not your father's hand. Not anymore. The fingers are stiff, bent at angles that suggest the body remembers shape but not purpose. The skin looks tight and pale under the candlelight, stretched like old paper over something that should not be moving. A sour smell rolls into the room. Damp cloth, cold earth, and the metallic sting of old sickness. Your aunt finally screams. The hand withdraws. Then the knocking stops. For one beautiful, stupid second, you think it's over. Then you hear footsteps in the hallway behind you, slow, dragging, familiar. The same uneven step your father had during his final year, when illness made one leg weaker than the other. Your blood turns cold, because the coffin is still in front of you, and something wearing your father's walk is now behind you. You don't realize a house can become hostile until it learns your grief. That's the terrifying part. Not the corpse, not the folklore, the house itself. By 3:17 a.m., your childhood home no longer feels arranged for human life. The walls seem narrower somehow, pressing inward beneath the weak glow of funeral candles. Shadows stretch too long across the floor. The incense smoke hangs low now, instead of rising, trapping the air beneath a suffocating haze that smells like burnt paper and wet soil. And somewhere inside the house, something is walking around wearing your father's footsteps. Tap, drag, tap, slow, patient, like it already knows nobody here is leaving before sunrise. Your uncle grips the kitchen knife hard enough for his knuckles to turn white. Your grandmother continues praying beside the altar without pause, though her voice has started trembling badly between breaths. Nobody wants to look down the hallway, because everybody already knows what's standing there. The sound comes again. Dograk. Tap. Closer this time. Then your father coughs. A dry, exhausted cough from the darkness beyond the living room. Your aunt immediately breaks down sobbing. That's how this thing hunts. Not with speed, not with violence, with memory. It reaches into the weakest parts of the human brain and pulls hard. You hate yourself for it, but part of you wants to run into that hallway, because grief rewires logic in disgusting ways. Your brain begins building impossible fantasies automatically. Maybe he survived somehow. Maybe this is a miracle. Maybe death made a mistake. That's the problem with losing someone suddenly. The mind becomes vulnerable to negotiation, and whatever is inside your house understands that perfectly. Your grandmother suddenly grabs your wrist. "Don't let it speak too long," she whispers. You stare at her. What happens if it does? She hesitates. That hesitation is worse than the answer. Then the hallway light flickers on by itself. Everyone turns, and there he is. Your father stands at the far end of the corridor beneath the pale fluorescent light. For one horrifying second, your heart almost believes it. Same height, same thin frame, same grey funeral clothes. But the details are wrong in the exact ways that matter. His head tilts slightly too far to one side. His arms hang unnaturally stiff against his body. Water drips slowly from his sleeves onto the wooden floor despite the dry air inside the house. And his eyes, God. His eyes look empty in the way abandoned buildings feel empty. Not peaceful or cupid. The thing smiles at you. Your father never smiled like that. The mouth stretches too wide. revealing gums darkened almost purple beneath the candlelight. Its jaw cracks softly as it moves, like old furniture shifting under pressure. Then it speaks using your father's voice. You finally came home. The sentence hits harder than fear itself. Because it's true. You did come home too late. And suddenly the entity doesn't feel like a monster anymore. It feels like punishment. The more guilt enters the room, the stronger the thing becomes. Candles begin flickering violently. The altar portrait falls sideways onto the floor with a sharp crack. Somewhere upstairs, a bedroom door slowly creaks open on its own. The house remembers your father. And now something else is learning how to wear those memories correctly. Your uncle lunges forward with the knife. Big mistake. The thing moves instantly. Not fast in a human way, fast in a wrong way. One moment it stands at the end of the hallway. The next moment it's directly in front of your uncle, without taking a single visible step. The air temperature crashes. A smell of muddy river water and rotting incense floods the room. Your uncle freezes completely as the thing leans close to his face. Then, softly, it repeats a sentence only your dead father would know. You stole money from my hospital drawer. Your uncle collapses backward immediately, crying because it's true too. That's when you finally understand what this thing really is. It isn't wearing your father's body. It's wearing the guilt your family buried with him. And one by one, it's opening the coffin back up inside all of you. The ritual fails because nobody in the room truly wants it to work. That's the ugly truth. Your grandmother keeps praying. Your uncle keeps shaking on the floor. Your aunt keeps begging your father's name into her hands like repetition can turn a nightmare back into a family member. And you? You stand there staring at the thing in the hallway, still waiting for one more impossible apology. One more sentence, one more chance. The entity tilts its head toward you, and the movement makes a soft cracking sound beneath the skin. The smell in the room thickens. Wet earth, old incense, cold fabric left too long in a closed drawer. Your stomach twists as the candlelight bends across its face. It looks almost sad now. That's cruel. That's effective. I waited, it says, your father's voice, your father's pain, your father's accusation. You take one step forward. Your grandmother snaps. No. She throws sticky rice across the floor. Grains scatter around your feet like tiny white teeth. The thing stops moving for half a second, its empty eyes shifting downward as if forced to count every piece. So that part is true. Good to know. Folklore occasionally has customer support. Your grandmother grabs your face with both hands, forcing you to look at her. That is not your father, she says. That is what came when your father was too heavy to leave. Too heavy with regret. Too heavy with resentment. Too heavy with all the words this family swallowed, until they became poison. The thing in the hallway smiles again. Then it speaks in your voice. I should have come home. Your knees nearly give out. Because that sentence wasn't spoken aloud by anyone. It came from inside you. That's when the final shape of the horror becomes clear. The reanimated corpse is not simply a corpse rising from the coffin. That would be almost generous. No, this is something worse. A spiritual vacancy filled by whatever grief leaves behind. A body without its owner. A family without closure. A house full of emotional rot. And something smart enough to feed on it. The coffin was never the real prison. You were. Your grandmother thrusts a bundle of burning incense into your hands. Say goodbye, she whispers. The entity steps closer. The hallway light bursts. Darkness slams into the room. For a moment, all you have is heat from the incense burning your fingers, smoke scraping your throat, and the sound of your dead father breathing inches away from your face. Then you say it. Not an apology, not an excuse, just the truth. I loved you, but you're gone. The breathing stops, the whole house exhales. When the lights flicker back on, the hallway is empty. The coffin sits sealed in the living room again. But now there are muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the coffin to the front door. And the door is open. So here's the survival advice. Since apparently you still enjoy being alive. If you're ever attending a Vietnamese wake, don't leave the body unattended. Keep the incense burning. Keep metal near the coffin. Keep cats away, especially the quiet ones that stare too long. Scatter rice or salt if something begins moving when it shouldn't. Most importantly, do not answer familiar voices after midnight. Grief makes you polite. Survival requires you to be rude. Survival chance, 18%. Higher if your family follows the rituals. Lower if you're sentimental, sleep-deprived, or carrying unresolved guilt. Which, statistically speaking, describes most families on Earth, lovely species. And tonight, when your hallway creaks, when the air turns cold, when a voice you miss more than anything gently calls your name from the dark, remember this: the dead may love you, but whatever wears them afterward probably doesn't. So lock the door, don't answer, and if you see a black cat watching an empty corner of the room, congratulations, something else has already arrived.